Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience while we dealt with technical difficulties. My name is Constance, and I am very, very happy. We are here today with Margaret Dilloway and Jay. I don't want to butcher your last name. Is it Sukow?
Hey, we'll take it. It's Sukow.
Sukow, there we go. But we are here to celebrate Margaret's new book. He's going to be in conversation with her. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys take it away. Don't forget that if you have questions, make sure that you post them in that comment section down below. And have an amazing event, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Constance. Hey, Margaret, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How's it going with you?
Well, it's going really well because I have read your book, The 5 Things About Ava Andrews, and it's such a great book. What was the inspiration for it? What made you write this book?
Well, a couple of years ago, I started taking improv classes, and I noticed it really helped me with my anxiety. Like I've always had kind of a I've been diagnosed with generalized and social anxiety disorders. And it really helped me stay in the moment and not be afraid to talk, and help with public speaking and writing. And I liked it so much that I made my preteen daughter take it, and found that it helped her too. So then I was like, I want to write a book about improv, and I decided to write it. So it's kind of like a sports book, like it's about a team, but it's improv. So that's how I approached it.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of people, when they come into improv class, the first class you talk about like why you're there. And so many people have issues with social anxiety and with feeling uncomfortable in front of people and wanting to be a better speaker in front of people. So I see that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And when I asked for help and input on the book, I got a lot of people messaging me, giving me their experiences and telling me about how improv helped with their mental health.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to bringing you out of your shell and helping overcome that anxiety, you spend time just laughing every week, and there's power in that.
Right, there is. And I think the other big thing about it is it helps you accept uncertainty. So it helps you be okay with that. And that I think is really important right now. And it's important to the character too, because she also has a heart condition, which is similar to the one that I have, that I added to the book. So it's important for her to keep her anxiety in check.
Most of the people watching, I'm sure, have bought the book or are going to buy the book. I mean, that's a promise that they've given to us. But tell us a little bit. Tell us about the story. Like, tell us about Ava and
Sure.
What's her story?
So Ava is an 11-year-old sixth grader. She's just going into sixth grade. She's half Japanese, like me, and she lives in San Diego, also like me. You'll find a lot of San Diego landmarks in there and references to San Diego. Her best friend, Zelia, has just moved away to the East Coast, and Zelia was always the one who spoke up for her. So Zelia is extremely outgoing, and she did improv. And so Ava just kind of tagged along with her and dependent on Zelia. But now she's going into middle school, not knowing anybody and feeling very unsure about herself. And so Ava's got a pacemaker, an ICD pacemaker, which is the kind that will zap you if your heart actually stops instead of just pacing, with this genetic heart disease. And so she's always aware of that and always careful about what she's doing. And just having that kind of gives her anxiety, but she also has just anxiety on top of it. The other thing is that she's usually very quiet. So when people see her, they just think that she's being a snob or something because she's not talking. So that's it's hard for her to make new friends because of that. So what happens in the book is this girl who goes to her school invites her to join the improv group because they need another kid or they're going to cancel it. And everybody's very accepting. She gets involved, and then in the book, it takes place in a fictional the improv theater is in this kind of place that's like Seaport Village in San Diego, and they're going to tear everything down and redevelop it. So she starts this like grassroots campaign to try to stop that.
You know, it's funny that you have fleshed out the character so well, and the kids in the improv group. As an improviser myself, I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly. These could be sixth graders, or these could also be adults. Like the personality traits of those people in that group were so true. And one of them, actually, you mentioned, was before taking improv classes, was more of a bully, one of those characters. And then improv kind of helped them turn around to take that energy and channel it into something positive rather than something negative.
Right. I actually got that idea. You had introduced me to a lady in Chicago who does the Improv for Bullying nonprofit.
Oh,
that
yeah.
I think you work with too.
Yeah.
And she had told me that it's really good for what's good for everybody to take. But as far as bullying goes, it teaches the bullies empathy, and then it teaches the kids who are being bullied to stand up for themselves. And I've heard that with extroverts and introverts too. Like and the introverts have to step into the space a little bit more, and the extroverts have to learn how to leave room for other people.
Yeah, Eileen Kahana is the woman who runs Room to Improv, and she's a former Chicago public school teacher, and she talks about how it changes the lives of kids she's worked with, and taken bullying and kind of helped eliminate it, because improv is about accepting and being open. And it's funny in the book, Ava, it has to do a class project with someone who assumes she is just aloof and snobbish because she's not talking. What he doesn't realize is it's anxiety that causes her not to talk.
Yeah, and that's an experience a lot of people have, I think. A lot of people I've talked to, it's an experience I had when I was in middle school. I got bullied because I didn't talk, and I was like, I didn't do anything. Why are you bullying me? And then like mutual friends had to step in and say, well, she's nice, she's just quiet. Leave her alone.
Yeah, people mistake that silence for many things, and a lot of times it's a negative view. But like a lot of times the people who are the most quiet are the ones who are listening the most too. And if you've been around kids at all, you know that sometimes it can get very loud and boisterous, and so silence sometimes is needed in those situations.
Yeah, and that's another thing with this book. Like one of the ways I described Ava is that she's got a Technicolor inside and a black and white exterior. So that's what the artist picked up on for the cover. She's got a lot going on internally, but nobody can see it.
Yeah, the color, I mean, that cover is so cool. Like whoever designed that seemed to really capture what she was all about in such a really cool way.
Yeah, it's a really great cover. I got to, well, I didn't get to pick the artist from out of everybody, but they gave me a few choices and said, what would you like to do this?
How much of this, what percentage is based on, I mean, you've touched on it a little bit, what percentage is based on you? Mm-hmm. And then what percentage, or I guess you including like your improv journey, and then what percentage is based on just extrapolating from that?
I think the core of Ava's character is very much like me, and it's also like my daughter. So it felt very personal to write it, like I was writing it for the both of us. And it might be like once you read this book, it might be like the most like how my mind works internally of all my books. So I tried to make it so you could feel what it's like to kind of have anxiety and everything. So yeah, it feels the most personal.
I mean, when the way you describe anxiety and how you feel, as I was reading it, I was like, oh yeah, that you summed it up really well. Like there were so many times reading this, I was like, yeah, I've been in those situations. You know, I think everybody has different levels of anxiety, and some people I feel just hide it better than others.
Right.
And when you're like like if you're a performer, people think, oh, you've got to just be so outgoing and have, no anxiety. It's like, no. A lot of times those outgoing performers, before they go on stage, are battling that anxiety in order to just quiet it a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I definitely do that too. And some of the feedback I've gotten from my teammates, which surprised me, is that I seem to always go out there with an idea and can like start a scene, but I don't actually have an idea. I just go out there because I don't want the stage to be empty. And I'm just as clueless as everybody else. I just start babbling and hopefully something funny happens.
I mean, don't you feel that people consider you, that you know what you're doing, and you rarely do, but a lot of people look to you to be like, oh, Margaret knows what she's doing. It's like, no, you just have that confidence, or I don't even know if it's confidence. You just know somebody's got to be out there, so you'll go out there.
Yeah, I guess it's just my demeanor, and maybe it's from being a teacher or whatever. I taught middle school for a little bit, so I just pretend like I know what I'm doing. So, because in middle school, if you're teaching middle school and the kids sense that you don't have control, they will be on you like a pack of jackals. So you just have to have that.
Yeah, you got to fake it, right? I have a buddy who says real or fake confidence. It's the same thing.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm like, yeah. Speaking of improv, we have a question. What inspired you to try an improv class, and what was it like going to your first class? So yeah, what made you take an improv class?
Well, I saw a show. It was a long form show. I'd never seen long form before.
And this was in San Diego?
Yes, in San Diego. And I thought it looked like fun. I thought it looked scary. But I love the storytelling aspect, and I'd only seen short form before. So long form was new to me, but I liked that you could create characters and have these scenes, and it really was my jam as a writer.
And short form, for those who might not know what that is, if you've ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, it's you get a suggestion and you play a game, and it's usually about 4 minutes or so. And there are some rules that are explained, and you do that. Whereas a long form improvisation is you get one suggestion and you go for anywhere from, any 5 minutes to usually shows are about 20, 25 minutes based on that one suggestion. So you don't continue to get suggestions. And it's interesting that that would appeal to you, I guess, because you're a storyteller. Maybe you found more comfort in that aspect than in a short form situation where you have it more explained to you. So do you think that was part of it? The fact you're a storyteller, then your brain found that more comforting?
I think so. And also, I'm not really good at puns. Like you have to a lot of the games have to do with puns. I know you're good at that, but it takes me a while to think of one. So yeah, I really like narrative improv. I do Babysitter's Club online now, and we follow a story format. It follows the same arc as a novel. So I just really like that format and leaning into that.
Yeah, I think narrative is really fun because you have a payoff and the audience can follow that story right there.
Right.
What do you remember? What you felt like walking right before you went into that very first improv class? Do you remember? Were you excited? Were you nervous, anxious?
Yeah, I felt like the first day of kindergarten, and part of me wanted to turn around and run away, like call somebody to come pick me up and just, go get ice cream instead. But
like Ava.
Yeah. There's a lot of ice cream in this book.
Oh my goodness, that's the best part. You talk so much about ice cream. I'm reading the book, and I'm just thinking about ice cream the whole time because it has such it's such a part of the show. Whether it's with her grandparents or they're just going to get ice cream as a treat. Like I think a lot of improvisers love ice cream too.
Probably, like most people. I like ice cream.
Thank you. Yeah, if you don't like ice cream, we got to find out what's wrong with you right there. So do you remember after that first class, you wanted to come back, or were you like, not sure?
Let me think back. I think some of the warm-up games I found a little bit stressful, like we're doing mind meld where you both have to say a word at the same time, and then you try to both say the same word at one time. So like I could say iron and you would say another word, and
Burger.
So I found that I find things like that to be a little bit stressful. But I really liked everybody in the class, and I had fun relating to people, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun.
Well, I think it's when in the book too, where Ava, she talks about having to get things right.
Yeah.
And that freezes her sometimes from doing anything because it's like that fear of getting it wrong. And you bring it up in the book of like in improv, there is no wrong answer as you're going. And I think when you do that game mind meld, a lot of times they get gripped with anxiety because they have to get the right one.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, I look at that game like, oh, I'm pretty sure you and I are not going to get the right one, but it's going to let somebody else get it down the road. And so if I can trick my brain into not having to get it right, then I think that for me at least helps a little bit with the anxiety, because when it's for me, I don't like that warm up. And you have it in the book, the warm up where someone's like, name 5 things blank. To me, that's very stressful. If it's like 5 actual things, my mind will freeze on that because it wants to get it right. And I think that's a big lesson for improv for me is, let go of that desire to be right. And that will lessen the anxiety.
Yeah, actually 5 Things is my favorite warm-up game. That's why I have the title. And we play it that they're fictional, like 5 things you would find in Santa Claus's bag or something like that, or like something weird. 5 made up cereal names. So you don't really have to think about getting it right at all. It's not like you have to say 5 capitals of countries or something.
Yeah, I like playing it that way, where it's like make up 5 new colors in a crayon box. It's like, great, I can do that. But when it's like name 5 actual states capitals, I'll be like, oh man. There's a game, Thunderdome. Do you know that game?
Mm-mm.
So it's like 2 people in the middle and everyone starts chanting Thunderdome and a category is said. And it's like, name states capitals, and I'm out of that game very quickly because there's so much pressure, and then you hear people chanting. I'm like, I don't want that. No. No. I want to be able to be wrong. And that, I guess that for me is part of the joy of improv is, I don't have to get things right. And if it's wrong, we'll just keep being wrong. I have a friend who says, make the wrong choice. Don't make the right choice in a scene. Make a wrong choice as you go.
Yeah, like it's always funny when, you accidentally stumble over a word, like instead of water, you just say blah, I don't know, blah, blah, and everybody calls it that for the rest of the scene. It turns into a fun game.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We, it's what is jazz? They say, play the wrong note again, and then again, and that becomes part of your song. Do you want to read a little bit from your book?
Sure.
Yay!
Yeah, so I'm just going to read a little bit. This is the part where you can see Ava's anxiety coming into play after school. And she's just making friends with this girl named Cecily. All I want to do is go to my grandparents' house and have a giant bowl of ice cream so I can put this day behind me. I have to turn right, walk through the park, and I'll be there in no time. I begin to veer, expecting Cecily to keep going straight. Bye, Cecily. She doesn't change direction. I'll walk with you through the park. I'm not getting a ride today. Oh, a little shiver of happiness zips through me. I smile at her and she smiles back. Am I making a friend? My stomach jumps. What should I say? We continue on in silence through the school parking lot. Cecily doesn't seem to mind my quiet. I relax a little bit. Ryan's in the park, jumping around on the grass like a golden retriever that's been turned into a boy, his hair flopping back and forth. If he had a long, feathery tail, he'd be wagging it. Ah, free at last. Chad runs circles around him. I thought this day would never end. Around them are some other boys I don't know. They're all talking and laughing. Looking at these strangers, I close up like a clamshell inside. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Chad, Cecily calls out. They wave and smile. I try to smile at them, but I can't make myself meet their eyes. Instead, I find myself getting sweaty. Eye contact is a thing Mr. Matt is trying to work with me on. He says it makes me have a fear response, and the only way to get over it is to, drumroll, make eye contact. Obviously not going to happen. Anyway, I'm not sure whether Ryan and Chad actually like me or if they're just being nice during improv. They sure don't want to talk to me right now. They're with their real friends who definitely don't want to hang out with me. They haven't even smiled or looked over. You, Ryan races over. New girl. Ava, Cecily corrects him like she did during improv. Chad pants, his hands on his thighs. Dude, stop moving so fast. There's a noise like a full churning garbage disposal, and Chad claps his hands over his belly. Was that you? Cecily asks. Thought someone was flushing a toilet, Ryan giggles. I turn red on Chad's behalf. If my stomach did that in front of people, I would have to go hide forever. It totally sounded like that. Chad doesn't look the least bit embarrassed. Oh man, I'm so hungry. Ryan regards the rest of us. Anyone want to go to Foster Freeze? Foster Freeze is a couple blocks away. They sell soft serve ice cream and burgers and things like that. For all of elementary school, Zelia and I wanted to walk to Foster Freeze on our own, but our parents said we had to wait until middle school. Then, of course, Zelia moved away. So I thought my dreams of getting a dipped cone after school were dead. I'm probably supposed to ask my parents' permission or something, but wouldn't they just be happy that I'm doing things with real people? Nobody else is trying to ask their parents. Yeah, one of the other boys bellows, and like a wave, they all start moving toward the store, Ryan and Chad and Cecily with them. Only I stand still, undecided. What if they really didn't want me to go after all? I gotta get home, I say to the air and walk in the opposite direction. No Foster's Freeze? Ryan calls after me. He sounds disappointed, maybe? Come on, Ava, Cecily adds, it'll be fun. For a moment, I slow down. It's hot today. A soft serve vanilla chocolate cone dipped in chocolate would taste so good right now. And I have a folded $5 bill in the inner pocket of my backpack. You always wanted to go after school, my mind reminds me. What's the big deal? No. My gut tells me it's safer if I don't go. Sorry, my grandparents will get worried. I break into a run, my huge backpack smacking my spine like a cartoon anvil.
First off, ice cream right off the bat. B, those descriptions, and again, that anxiety. And this is kind of the first time, right, that she meets them kind of in their element too. Like, and when you're describing them, I mean, I know adults who act that same way that those kids do. So it's like, I can relate to those kind of people as well. And then feeling that anxiety of like, you know, she gets thrown in this situation with these like outgoing kids, and she early on has to kind of find her way, but she proves it pretty early on at that very first improv rehearsal. She kind of blows them away with what she's able to do.
Yeah, she is able to get into the moment at her first improv rehearsal and kind of forget about everybody. But then afterwards, she runs and hides in the bathroom because she can't take the attention and the overwhelming feeling that she gets from doing it.
Well, and the whole time she, you know, I think what she learns is, and this is a valuable lesson for anyone, people aren't always making these negative assumptions about us. And she, many times that anxiety grips her when she thinks, oh, they're talking about me in a negative way. I'm having these negative thoughts. And she has a therapist that she talks to as well that deals with that. And you can see throughout the course of the book, she's taking all of these lessons and applying it. And I think that helps her with the anxiety.
Yeah, she really does try to work hard on getting her anxiety under control. And then there's an important distinction too I wanted to make that my editor wanted me to make in the book, and that's, it's okay to be an introvert and it's okay to like want to be alone a lot of the time. So there's another kid in the group who's more like that, and he doesn't really hang out with everybody, and they just accept that about him.
Yeah.
But for Ava, her anxiety is a problem, or her shyness is a problem, because it prevents her from doing the things that she wants to do, like that Smith song, you know.
Oh, yes. I think you and I both have gone through a Smith/Morrissey phase in our life.
Probably.
We have a question of, do you have advice for kids now that are dealing with anxiety? Like, what advice would you give them?
Well, maybe we could talk about the grounding exercise
Yeah,
that I was talking about earlier.
yeah.
So this isn't necessarily something you do just in improv, but you can find 3 to 5 things in your environment that you can touch, hear, and see, and say those things out loud. And that will help quiet your mind and keep it from racing into the future or clinging on to unhelpful thoughts. And then the other thing is to know that you can handle anything that comes your way, which is what you learn in improv. Like, people say something to you that you weren't expecting, and you just take it in and go with it.
Yeah, accepting, I think, is a big tool.
Yeah.
And sometimes people mislabel accepting as like helpless or weak. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's that at all. I think accepting the situation is a very strong thing to do. And then you can make, your decisions or changes based on that, of accepting what's happening, rather than I'm not accepting this moment. It's like, no, accept it. This is what's happening. But then you can make a decision on what your reaction to it is.
Right. And I think that's a big thing people are dealing with now because of the virus. They don't know what their futures are going to be like. But the truth is, you never know what your future is going to be like. You have a picture of it. Like, you think, in 5 years, I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy a house, or I'm going to go to Hawaii or whatever. But you don't know that's going to happen. So you can choose to still think that the things are going to happen, even though there's this thing you can't control. And that's what Ava does with her heart condition too, because she doesn't know if she will be sick tomorrow and her heart will completely fail, or she's going to live a long life because of her heart thing. But really, it's no different than anything anybody goes through, because nobody knows the future.
And that's one of the themes, is like accepting uncertainty, right? Like, how do you do that? And because of a lot of this, at least a lot of Ava at certain points are it's drawn from your own experience or with your daughter. Like, how have you been able to, accept uncertainty? Is it something that you still continue to practice and remind yourself on a regular basis? Or do you find that it's something that is just more natural for you now?
Well, it's something that I still work on. I have to coach myself through it. Like I kind of just did there. That's the thought process I had with it. So I have something called non-compaction cardiomyopathy. It's a spongy heart tissue. And my mom died of it when I was 20. So it was like 26 years ago. My oldest brother died of it, and then 2 of my mom's sisters. So it's a genetic heart condition. And so when I first got diagnosed with it, I felt very freaked out and afraid. And having the ICD implant is not a picnic. But it's just about like accepting that I'm actually safer now, I think, than I was before, because I know about it and I have this device protecting me, so I can do more things and not worry about it. And then it's also the same mindset, like, yes, I have this thing that might happen to me, but you might have something that you don't know about that can happen to you. So it's just because I know about it that it had caused me more anxiety. But in reality, it's not different than anything else.
Yeah, that's something you touch on upon in the book too, where she has that, and it's people. It seems to be that in some genetic makeups of some families where that's just an issue that you deal with, and then knowing, I guess you said it right, knowing this could happen tomorrow, or it could happen in your 90s, and you just don't know. So, some of those tools to navigate that uncertainty, which, oh boy, anxiety and uncertainty, I mean, those go hand in hand so much. Like we have as humans, I think we have such a fear of the unknown. And right now, people's anxiety because of everything that's happening is at an all-time high right now. And I think you can feel it. Like you can feel that energy in the world right now is because it's so uncertain. And so having some of these tools, and I love that mindfulness exercise of, okay, name 5 things I can see, or what are 5 things I can hear? Isn't there something also with senses? It's like, what is it? One thing I taste right now? What's 3 things I hear? Like there's a tool you can use as well, where it's like, oh, I see this black pen, or I see this cup of water, but then also what do I hear? I hear an air conditioning going, or I hear my voice, or something like that. And those are ways to stay present.
Yeah. And you can even take it a step further. Like you can say, I see the top of my desk, it's black and it's smooth like glass. And like have a little descriptor with it and kind of get into that moment even more.
Oh, that's good. So it distills it down even more. I mean, I think, anxiety with kids is such a powerful issue right now, especially. And I think as parents, you're always, or anybody who's dealing with kids, whether you're like a teacher or in some sort of authority with kids, or if you're a parent yourself, I think trying to navigate that to help lessen the anxiety is such a, I know for me as a parent, it's something I'm constantly thinking about is like, okay, am I adding to their anxiety, and, or am I preparing them for the future to give them these tools so they can deal with that anxiety?
Yeah. And a lot of it is not just hiding from it, like having kids do exercises to kind of, like she was saying, her therapist was telling her to get over being afraid of making eye contact. She has to make eye contact. So there's like that aversion therapy where you have techniques that help you do these things because they're things that you need to do. You can't like avoid them forever and be a functional, happy person. But yeah, that's I think that for me, I was seeing these anxiety patterns emerge in my daughter that were so much like mine. And I was like, well, her upbringing was totally different from mine, but she still has this. It's just like a genetic thing. And trying to help her deal with that. One thing that people often might say to somebody is just like, oh, just get over it, just stop doing it. What's wrong with you? And so she talks about that a lot in the book. Like one of her brothers does that to her. Like he doesn't understand. Like, why can't you just go up to these kids and start talking? That's what I do.
Right. I mean, what's more frustrating for someone than hearing something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people with all kinds of different mental health conditions hear that, like depression, like, oh, just get over it. You'll feel better if you just get up. But if you can't get up, then what are you going to do? And it's interesting because, nobody would tell Ava like, oh, your hurt is bad, so just make it be better. You don't do that with physical conditions.
Well, yeah, we don't place the same emphasis that we need to on mental health. And, like you said, for so long, it's like, well, get up, don't feel that way. And it's like, you know what, if you're depressed, I wish I didn't feel this way. I just do. And I had a therapist once who said, Jay, if you're depressed, be the best depressed you can be. And I did not want to hear that, but it made sense where it's like, oh, you have to sit in this and learn how to be in that moment, and it'll eventually pass. And you can't make it pass. There are tools you can use. In improv, we say follow the fear, which is that same, look people in the eye. It's like, what is the thing I'm afraid of? Then I'm going to go towards it. And that's one thing I think that's helped, that I've taken from improv, is like, oh, there are moments of follow the fear. There's also moments where it's like, oh, this is definitely not a follow the fear moment. This is something where I might need help, or I might have an imbalance in my brain, and I need to get that fixed as well. So I think these are all really useful tools to help with this situation of anxiety, especially.
Yeah, and I hope that people who don't have anxiety who read the book will understand that what it's like, and they won't say anymore, like, just get over it. What's the matter with you? Or, you know, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's interesting that it took that, I mean, I don't want to give away what happens in the book, but it took a situation that for her brother to understand what's happening. And, luckily he did understand it more, but hopefully reading this book will give people an idea of, oh, what do I do in that situation? Because it's not that her brother is, I don't think he's ill spirited, but he just doesn't understand. And so, if you could practice a little more empathy, I think that goes a long way, because she does have, one of her brothers is very empathetic towards her, more so than the other one.
Yeah, in the book, she is very close to her oldest brother. He's kind of her guardian and protector and teacher. And then her middle brother, who's closer in age to her, she's just like annoying to him, which is, I think, kind of a common thing. But he just doesn't get it. And then it's the same thing too in her classes with the boy she's having a problem with. So Ava has a medical plan, a 504 plan for anxiety, and that lets her do certain things like leave the classroom to compose herself if she needs to, or get extra time. And he thinks that she's just getting special treatment because he can't see anything wrong with her. And I think a lot of people think like that, like, why should this person get to go out on a bathroom pass whenever they feel like it, just because they say they have this thing that I can't see. So that's another thing that became part of it.
They're always talking about how things aren't fair, and it's like, it's not. It just, and I feel bad because I say, like, you're right, and it's just, things aren't fair, and there are some situations that you won't understand, but they just won't seem fair. And I think Ava finds herself in that situation where, people think this isn't fair. And it's like, well, you don't know the whole story. So if you can have more of that empathy and putting yourself into understanding that there's a situation that it just is the way it is, but it's not a bad thing. And I think also for me as a parent, reading that also gave me some insight into ways that I can, if situations like that come up, now I have some tools where I can have that and have my kids learn from that. My kids are 7 and 5. And so pretty soon they're going to be able to read these. Like my 7-year-old is almost at the level where he can read this book now, because I think it's laid out so well, and he just loves reading. So I think this serves such a great audience too.
Yeah, hopefully I try to make my books entertaining for kids, but also have a little bit of meat on them, I guess. So I like to make the middle grade books kind of enjoyable for adults to read as well as kids, but not like too heavy for kids. So there's a lot of humor in the book. And the other thing I was going to say, just mention real quick, is that one of the things I really touched on in the book is how much preparation it actually takes to get to the place where you appear normal in the classroom or in public. Like all the work that Ava's parents do with her, her brother does with her, and her therapist, and she does on herself. Like nobody sees all that. They just see her sitting quietly in the classroom being well behaved, but they don't see her struggling. So that's another thing I wanted to shed light on.
I've got a friend who has a son who's a high school freshman, just finished his freshman year. And that kid's got a tutor, he's got a therapist, he's got a psychologist, and it's everything, all, like you said, all that work that goes on behind the scenes. And he's not as calm in the classroom as Ava is by any means. But if my friend didn't use those resources, I can't even imagine what it would be like.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times the quiet kids get overlooked. Like they just think, oh, they're quiet. They're getting okay grades. There must not be a problem. Yeah. But they can really be struggling with stuff.
Well, I think that also goes into adulthood too, where so many people who are quiet, and you also talk about cultural differences too, where different cultures have a different way of interacting just at simple meetings too. Like I know, in general, Americans have no problem being loud and voicing their concerns, but there are other cultures where they want to do more listening and they're quieter. And so, how do you navigate that and not overlook those people who haven't spoken up because either they're waiting for a time to speak up or they're still contemplating and processing information?
Yeah, that's another thing I tried to do as a teacher is to kind of facilitate kids who are quieter, like having the space and time to speak up, or at least going up to them privately and working with them and getting a sense of how they felt.
I've got a question that came into us. What was the hardest part about writing this book, and what was the most joyful part?
I guess, well, my editor at first was doubtful about my ability to write an improv book because I guess other authors had tried to write improv books and had not been accepted. So the approach I took was more like the feelings that happened to her during the improv scene. So I did find like writing those scenes to be difficult because it's not about like recreating like how funny it was necessarily, but like how she was feeling. Just like if you're reading a book about that takes place on a baseball team, they don't really go into all the detail of everything physically happening, but how they're feeling when they do it.
Yeah.
And then the most joyful part was, I think, all the relationships I have in the book. Like I was creating this world where her parents are very supportive, and I was talking about places that I knew. So it felt like I was creating like a very comfy and supportive world for her to live in, even though she's dealing with this thing. And I found that to be a lot of fun to write.
And you put in, at the end, you actually gave a couple of exercises that people can play, a couple of improv exercises.
Oh, I did?
Yeah. Yeah, you did. Like 5 things?
5 things.
Yeah.
Gifts. Oh yeah, the other good game that people can play is the
Did you read your book? Did you read it?
No. I hired my cat to write it, actually. She just did all this random stuff.
Good cat. Yeah, you've got a couple of exercises in the back, which were fun.
Yeah, I have the gift game where you turn to a partner and say, "Hi, here's a bag of clipped toenails that are moldy and disgusting." And your partner goes, "Oh my God, I've always wanted a bag of moldy toenails. I'm going to put these on my shelf in a glass bottle and display them." So it's about accepting what you're given and making something positive out of it, even if, it's obviously weird or whatever.
Yeah. And you hit upon it in the book too, of like this feeling of gratitude. And that springs back to the yes and, which I think having a sense of gratitude for things, I think also is an effective tool for anxiety. Mm-hmm. Just to like be grateful for situations and also to open yourself up to those moments of, I would first say no, but I'm going to see what happens if I say yes.
Yes. And that's also a really nice tool to have in friendships and intimate relationships and all kinds of work situations, whatever.
I mean, you have to say yes. That's the thing. You have to, if you don't in a work situation, eventually you'll be fired. If you don't say yes in a marriage, you'll get divorced. There are times where no matter, even if you don't want to, you'll have to say yes eventually. So having those, what I love too is having the class that she's in is a safe space for her that allows her to blossom and grow more.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a good way to answer the last question. Any recommendations for parents
Yeah.
who don't have anxiety but have children who do? I think that they should take an improv class if they can, but finding some kind of safe space for your children to
Yeah.
just be who they are and be fully accepted is, I think, really important. Just nurturing whatever they're into and teaching them how that their thoughts aren't who they are necessarily. People have anxious thoughts, and then they form big stories based on these sometimes negative thoughts, and it's about learning how to let that go and helping them practice that. There are lots of resources you can just look up on the internet for exercises to do that.
I mean, you that's a huge topic, is that negative self-talk.
Yeah.
That then we just amplify it, and then we assume everybody's, it's funny in the book, it's like, you assume all these people are talking about you, and it's like, they're really not. Like, a lot of times we're most of the time we're thinking about ourselves. And if we can kind of limit that self-doubt and that negative talk, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I took my kids, my daughters both have anxiety. I took them to a hypnotherapist one time, and he did this exercise that was really interesting. First, he had them say out loud, one of them, I think the younger one said, I'm weak, I'm weak, I'm weak, I'm weak, I'm small. And then she tried to lift up her sister, and she couldn't do it. And then she said, I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm strong, I can lift her up. And then she lifted her up off the ground. And
Wow.
It was just a demonstration of how powerful words actually are. They have meaning. You can't just say whatever you want to yourself because it will affect you badly. So treat yourself kindly and treat other people kindly. Because I don't think it's true that, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Like words can damage long-term.
Yes, for sure. Words have negative effect there. And that, we go back into the feeling of like empathy and having empathy for yourself. And would you allow someone to say the words to yourself that you're saying to yourself, or would you allow someone to say those words to like your loved ones? It's like, no, you wouldn't. But so often we allow ourselves to say those words to ourselves because, various reasons. One of them for an artist is an imposter syndrome, and we think that we're not good. And, somebody says, I didn't really care for that book. Instinct is, oh, they're right. They know. It's like, no, they don't know, but they're confirming what our fears are. And if we can limit that amount of self-talk and, improv, the first thing you learn is yes, and, which means defer judgment. And so that applies to yourself first. You have to defer judgment of yourself and then defer judgment of those around you.
Yeah.
Hey, Constance.
Hi. Hello. So I am popping back up. I know you guys just answered the last question, and we are at our time for tonight. I also think that is a very beautiful note to end on, is that self-love and also loving those around us is kind of beyond words, and how important that is, especially now and just always. With that, I think that is a very beautiful note to end the event on. And I just wanted to remind everyone that Margaret's book is available on our store website, 5 Things About Ava Andrews. And because we are very lucky to have Margaret as a local author, we are really happy, but she is going to be able to sign as well as personalized, not book plates, but actual physical books for you guys.
What?
So, yeah.
Good deal.
So if you want a signed and personalized book, this is a great book for like kids or anyone just with anxiety. I already have like a couple people off the top of my head I know it would be amazing for. And yep, the link is going to be in the comments down below. But that is it for tonight. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.